Welcome back to another episode of Keoni Chats. So, if everything goes smoothly in terms of exporting and uploading, this episode should be released on April 24th, 2021. So, the following day, April 25th, that will be the Keoni Chats 1 year anniversary. So, to think that 1 year ago was my first ever episode with Brandon Shimada, it is kind of blowing my mind because I think about how I conducted that interview and how it all looked as far as for YouTube. And it's just leaps and bounds. It's just so crazy to think that I've gone through so much change that it went from, in a small purple couch to, where I am now in a little bit higher raised white chair. And just thinking about growth, it can be scary, but it's also extremely rewarding because you have obviously gone through the trials and tribulations of experimentation, and then you found out what works, and then you just keep growing upon that. So this will be episode 45. 44 other people have come on this show and told me their story because I had my own episode, so I'm not counting myself. So to those 44 people, thank you so much for believing in me and trusting in me and telling your story correctly. Because without your faith in me, I would not have a show. So thank you again to those 44 people. And thank you to the fans for checking out the show and being active on social media. And, whether it is listening through any of the audio platforms or watching on YouTube, I don't even care if it's like my family. That's the only ones that are paying attention to this. I'm having so much fun getting people's stories out there. So for me, podcasting has always been a celebrity activity. So, a high-profile people talking to other high-profile people to hear about some of the things they have to deal with. Well, that is perfectly, I enjoy that, so I'm not bashing it. I want to talk to other people that I know and other people about how they handle some of the things I deal with. So, while the thought of a fan listening or watching and getting inspired from someone's story is very much a reward for me and very much something that would bring me a lot of joy. My mission goal with this has always been to get people's stories out there that don't have the opportunity. And I'm just overwhelmed with how grateful I am for those 44 people. So you are here to check out an episode, though, and Chris Keizur and we did work at the Daily Emerald together at the University of Oregon for a very brief moment because I did find out about the Duck TV program, and that's more of where I wanted to gear my degree. So I did jump from there to there, and the short interactions I've had with Chris were always so much fun. He's a very talkative guy. He's very smooth with his words. And during the interview, he actually mentioned that he was a play-by-play announcer, and that made so much sense. So I actually forgot to ask him during the interview, but I did ask him afterwards if he had any catchphrases. Whew, that's a tongue twister. Catchphrases, and he said no, but it just made so much sense when he said that because, of how smooth he is with his words and how you can jump from point A to point B to point C elegantly. And you don't even know that happens. So I call myself having to take a few steps backwards, make sure to get some more details out of, topic B before we jump to topic C. And I just remember Chris being a super intelligent guy when it comes to sports and super intelligent guy because currently Chris is a reporter for the Gresham Outlook. So he has to be resourceful. He has to find out how to get the story and how to tell the story. So outside of being the reporter for the Gresham Outlook, he is also the host of the Boo Boys podcast where he and two other co-hosts, they watch scary movies, horror movies, and they review it. They talk about it. So if that is something that sounds interesting to you, check out Boo Boys on Spotify and all of your other podcast platforms. So that was one thing when I wanted to get Keizur on the board or on the schedule. I was like, this would be fun to talk about because he and I are both in that same boat as podcast hosts. So I want to see how he operates and kind of pick his brain about that too as well. So before I send you off to that interview, I did post my mock draft, my NFL mock draft, my one and maybe only. And I'm still on the fence about potentially trying to pump another one out there. It has been hard to really balance making sure I at least get some mock drafts because it is fun, but it's just stressful to me. But to try to get all of that going in a timely manner. So I love the draft. I know for some people that is kind of boring, but to see the growth that these players are going to endure as far as going through this process and then jumping in from a college uniform into the NFL uniform, that's what is the most exciting part for me. It's like, okay, I know this person's going to play for this team now, but what is he going to look like in the jersey? Ooh, is he got the same number? So those are kind of the things I'm excited for when it comes to the draft. So, so to check out my first mock draft, it would be under my new website, keoniconlu.com. So that'd be KEONICONLU.com. And then this should be under blogs, and then I believe draft. And then you'll see ones from 2020, and then 2021 will be the very top option. And I believe at the bottom you can also subscribe to the website because that is where I post all of my creative content. So not just the mock drafts, also DC animated movie review series that I worked on about a year ago. And I also post any kind of photography events. So if I go out to nature and I take my camera with me, that's where I'll post that. And I also have videos or the podcast episode video versions available on the website. So it will be keoniconlu.com again. So it's KEONICONLU.com. And if you're unable to keep up with that, I also do post announcements all over social media. So that would be KC Media 13 on both Instagram and Twitter, and then Conlu K Media on Facebook. So however you are listening to this episode, or if you're watching this on YouTube, I hope you enjoy my chat with Chris Keizur. She's up and going. She's up and going.
We're launching. Let's go. We're live.
If you miss a countdown, you are boned. So
yeah, I wanted like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 kind of thing. I was all excited.
Oh, that's what I put in my intro. I just do the 5,
okay.
4. I have little title covers too.
Cool. Good.
Really expand on that one. So first off, Chris, I want to ask you about the hair. Because last time I saw you, it was graduation back in 2016.
Yeah.
You always had the short buzzed head.
I had it tight. Yeah, that's what I've had my whole life. And then I don't know if you knew, last year a big pandemic hit and hairdressers and barbers. Yeah, I know. I caught me by surprise too. But everything got shut down, so I couldn't get my hair cut. And I'm not going to take scissors to my own head. And so I thought, let's grow this out. In fact, the last haircut I got was the weekend before Thanksgiving 2019. Wow. And so obviously things are back open a little bit more, and I just decided, let's keep going. Let's see what happens. It's been a point of contention. My poor mother, I think, is going to have a heart attack some point just seeing it. She tries to hold me down and cut it and convince me and bribe me, but it hasn't worked yet. So
yeah, I feel there's that extent, and then also I know facial hair for me, it's like it can grow pretty thick, and then I let it grow pretty thick, and then when I shave it, I feel like 12 years old again.
Yeah,
just like a little thinner face.
And you look like 14, so it's perfect.
Right? I need to at least cut down. That's getting too old, man. It's getting too old.
Well, the mask hides everything. It doesn't matter what your facial hair looks like during the pandemic, because you just put a mask on and you look great. Yeah. You have a bad smile, mask on. I think masks are great. I know people hit and miss on them, and obviously the safety of it all, but I think it's great. It hides a lot. It hides half your face, so you don't have to do as much work on stuff. So it's pretty good.
So I think I saw your social media post. I think it was earlier in the month around the cherry blossoms. You had a mustache also.
I did, yeah.
What happened? What like A,
I
where did the idea come about? And B, why'd you shave it?
I had a mustache for a while in the pandemic. I probably was like inspired by Gardner Minshew or something. You know, I'm from Pullman, so the Washington State thing. Um, and that's again for me, shaving is just down to laziness, where I just don't feel like doing it, and so it'll go 3 4 weeks, and then it eventually hits a point where I decide, okay, I got to do something. And that actually a couple days ago is when I decided to do something. But yeah, when when you're out taking photos of the cherry blossoms, it's nice to have a little mustache to go with it. So
Right. Yeah, the mustache, the long hair. I did see a little bit of Minshew in you, but then
yeah,
I see the new photos of him now. He's rocking the mullet too. It's like, oh my god.
yeah, I mean, he's on a whole nother level. I couldn't pull off his look. It's flattering and it's more mimicry from me, but he's on a whole different level. I'm just kind of, most of mine is just laziness or things being closed, and
Yeah.
but what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So for your friends, when they see you or they through in person or through the video, what are their comments?
They're very nice to my face. I don't know what they say behind my back. One of my buddies is getting married this summer, and he asked me to be in the wedding party, and I said that'd be fine. I'm happy to do this, but like I'm not going to cut the hair. So you come to terms with that now. And he said he was fine with it. So I still am in the wedding party,
Yeah.
long hair and all, but yeah, everyone's very nice and complimentary to my face. So it's
That's all.
nice. It's good.
That's all that matters. And then once it starts seeping in and you start hearing about it, then we'll have issues to work with.
Yeah. It's been great buzz, just to my face.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's keep it going. Let's see what happens. Let's get down to the waist, Rapunzel style. Be cool.
So
It's Halloween. My Halloween costume is ready to go. I just throw on a dress, dye my hair blonde, and I'm Rapunzel. It's
there,
perfect.
I mean, you have the mask like we just talked about. It's probably gonna still be around this October, so
Yeah,
they'll never know.
right.
We'll just say you're the nerdy version of Rapunzel. The
Well,
glass.
I could take my glasses off. I don't have to be the nerdy version. I could be the handsome version, the beautiful version of Rapunzel.
You and I are both alumni of the journalism program at University of Oregon.
We're ducks.
You
We're
got a
mallards.
you got a job straight out of the gate for
I did. I kind
day
of
job.
cheated a little bit. Well, sort of. I played the game. I did the internship spring senior year in Portland at the Portland Tribune, doing sports and news. And in college, I was a sports guy, as you were, and so I knew the sports aspect. But they're like, "Hey, we want you to do news for us too." And I thought, "Oh my gosh, okay, I will," but I don't know what you're going to think about it. And so that internship went fine, and I'm in the same umbrella company working out here in Gresham now for the newspaper, and doing news for them. They hired me as a news reporter, so I guess they saw something they liked. And it's been about 5 years now doing that, so it's been kind of interesting. A lot more city council meetings. My first city council meeting I've ever attended was on this job. No one goes to council meetings as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was thinking about this the other day. I think it's interesting. You kind of get in this bubble as a news reporter where, now I know obviously all the city councilors and the mayor and these like city officials. And I was thinking back, like growing up in Pullman, which is a pretty small town. I knew the mayor because he did the play by play or like in stadium announcing during Cougar football games. But I couldn't tell you, I couldn't name a single city councilman or person in Pullman for my 18 years living there. And I just think in Eugene, I couldn't tell you the mayor of Eugene when we went to college there. And it's just like, and so I'm always confused, or not confused, but I'll be at events now as a reporter, and the mayor will come up and speak, and I'll hear people say, "Who is this guy? Who's talking right now?" And I think, yeah, I guess it is kind of this weird insular thing where if you're not part of the business community or you're not in the media, you have no clue who's like elected officials. It's just this weird situation I find myself in now.
Yeah. So when I I'm a Patriot fan, so I see like let's say Bill
Oh,
Belichick's.
you're a Patriots fan. All the
Yeah.
champion. Are you from Boston?
I'm not from Boston.
Oh,
I
okay.
was a bandwagon fan at
Yeah,
first,
yeah,
but
yeah.
then
Okay. Yeah.
I kind of saw this
Go
validation time.
Yankees.
Baseball, yeah, it's more football. Baseball, like I can pay attention, but it's like I need someone to be there to show me basically
Are
the.
you a Lakers fan too?
No, no, no.
Alabama football.
I I was at one point actually.
Okay, yeah, okay. That tracks. Good.
But yeah, no, Blazer fan. I mean, through
Okay.
and through.
Yeah.
It's sometimes tough to be a Blazer fan. We'll
It's
talk.
very tough. I'm as you know, I'm a Blazer fan.
Yes,
It's like torture sometimes. All my
yes,
sports teams, it's like torture being a fan of. I don't know why I do it sometimes. It's awful being a
it,
fan of
yeah.
sports. Like I don't know what we get out of it, really. I mean, I guess it's fun, but boy, I feel like I'm gonna die in early age, just the stress of watching these teams play. So
So is this your actual hair color, or did you dye it after all the gray
I'm
hair?
going gray for sure. I
Yeah.
have tons of, you can't really tell on camera, but yeah, I'm going gray. I'll be probably shock white in the next 2 years the way it's going. So
But yeah, I was saying like with Bill Belichick's press conference that he pushes out, it's kind of cool when people of that stature they know your name, and then you have that kind of like bubble with the mayor or any other person of the council. It's like, hey, okay, it's like they start trusting you about your reporting skills. So that's I haven't had that experience obviously because like I my journalism path's a little bit different than yours. And
yeah.
kind of
Well, in college too, it's like we're the second rung with the student paper. It helps being in Gresham because though we're a suburb of Portland, the Oregonian doesn't come out our way very often. The news media, like television crews, don't come out our way very often. So a lot of times it's only me covering these events, and so it's like, who else are they going to talk to if they want a story out there? Which I think that's the power of community media. You get that aspect where you maybe don't have the up in lights big profile national stories like Portland gets, but it means a lot more for the community members, and I think maybe what that Portland news does. So
how could for like so I'm randomly thinking like what if there's something going on in Gresham and then you see all these Portland news companies like Oregonian just bolt over to you guys. Do you have it? You know how there's jurisdictions for police officers. Do you get like first dibs on stories, or is just I know it's like you have to be there first kind of thing.
Yeah, some of that it's not really first dibs. It's more you build relationships with your sources, and then you hope they let you know things ahead of time if possible, or they'll answer your call if they're not answering calls from other people. I don't have like a tip other than just you write good stories and you do a good job reporting and you're fair and unbiased and as much as you can be. And we had some municipal issues out here. Our mayor left and city manager retired and stuff like that. And in the course of that, I had people at the city who sent me information just in terms of heads up when things were happening or documents and that's kind of stuff that is because I've been here for 5 years covering the city and they know who I am. And I'm sure they sent stuff to other reporters too, but you do get sometimes that kind of first look at things. And there's other times where someone decides they want to be on TV and they send stuff to K2 or whatever, and then I hear about it later and do a story. So it's kind of a give and take with stuff.
And then let's say that same story that Oregonians coming after, they meet you there in the middle. How hard is it to kind of make sure that the stories are different? I know, going back to our journalism roots, it's like find a different person. But for you, how is it to try to make sure that your story is different from what Oregonian publishes?
Yeah, I don't know if I try to make it different from like what if, for example, the Oregonian does. It's more just doing the story justice and telling it how it needs to be told. A lot of times when they come out our way, it's more of the breaking news. It's not so much a feature story, it's more like a shooting or something like that. And so it's hard to differentiate necessarily in especially initial reporting because it's just you kind of stick more to the facts with so and so was killed and whatever. It's more, and then the follow-up stories, out here I can get more of the community reaction to things and more of a local follow-up. And that's true of the national stories too, you know, with some of the um, killings of black men around the country at the hands of law enforcement. You know, we haven't had that in Gresham proper, but when those incidents happen, I can go to different community members and hear what they think and what they want to see in our community. And so you can kind of localize the stories. And we had marches and stuff. So you can just localize stuff to your community and make it fit
Mhm.
for your paper too.
Yeah. So you've gone 5 years with Gresham. Prior
Mm.
to that, obviously you were covering sports and all that at University of Oregon. So you jumped from sports to news, and then what was that like having to again switch from maybe the going on the courthouses to now Black Lives Matter and then the political runs and all that? How was it trying to cover all that?
You have to get used to it, and I think this is true of all journalism, where you're never the expert in something when you first show up, and you just have to rely on people to and just your own research to figure out what's going on. And so that's true of, you know, you show up. Yeah, I covered one of my first things. I covered it not for U of O, the student paper, but for an online source site, was roller derby. And I had no idea. I showed up at roller derby and I had no clue what was happening, and I tried to do some research, and it ended up like one of the referees' grandmas, like sitting next to me, realized what I was doing and like spent an hour explaining what I was watching. So like that ref's grandma, wherever she is, she like basically helped me write that first story from this roller derby tournament. But and so that's true. You know, you show up at a zoning, you know, a land zoning meeting, and I have no idea when I first show up what different zoning issues are. And but you just get the documents, and after the I think the key is you just can't be afraid to ask questions. And you don't, even though it might be embarrassing sometimes to ask something that should be obvious and is obvious to the people, like most of the time they understand and they want you to get stuff right. And a lot of times they are passionate about what they do and want to share that information with you, and by extension the readers. So I think just asking people and not trying to fake your way through it as much helps a lot.
Yeah, because I know I feel like sometimes when it comes to interviewing for an article you're writing, I keep forgetting that you can go back to a person and ask them clarifying
Mhm.
questions. I always think like it's a one and done kind of deal, and then that was kind of I think that maybe was my downfall because I was like, oh, I don't want to like I have a overthinking tendency, so I'm like, oh, I don't want to like go back and ask this person like, oh, what do you mean here, or what about this? Because what if they start thinking like, oh, associate me with this student newspaper or this other newspaper
Mm.
and think like this guy can't do his job.
Yeah, I think it was the mindset just being at the student paper to overcome. And now I'll blow people up with emails and phone calls, and if they make the mistake of giving me their cell number, I'll text them questions. Um and a lot of times it's because I'll be on deadline and I'm getting, you know, frantic messages from my publisher and editor saying like we need an extra photo or something. And so then I translate that as nicely as possible and start blowing up the source like, hey, I need this photo, hurry, hurry, please.
Yeah, yeah.
But this is kind of the name of the game.
Yeah. Did you ever like so when you were younger? Were there any signs that you can remember, or maybe your parents have told you that kind of told you now that like, oh, maybe I did make the right choice to become a journalism a reporter?
Well, I was in honors English my seventh grade, you know, and then tracked into AP English in high school. So I knew my way around a word, I guess. But you know, my high school, like I don't know, like did your high school have a student paper?
Yeah, yeah. So I didn't get into
Mm,
journalism until probably maybe a year or two into my time. So I was at Lane Community College first, and
mm.
then I started really putting my eye towards journalism. Probably, yeah, maybe sophomore junior year, and I just remember like I had the hardest time trying to adjust my writing to actual article writing because I was just
Mm.
thinking, I gotta tell a whole story. I gotta do from like creative writing. I carry that over. So yeah, but student newspaper, I knew it was there. I just didn't pay enough attention to it when
Yeah.
going to that.
See, I don't think my high school in Pullman didn't have a student paper. I think like my sophomore year, they tried to start one, and a few people I knew went to meetings, and I think it just died.
Mm.
I never like saw, if it existed, I never saw it in high school, and so it wasn't really on my radar. I did take we had a broadcast class in high school that was a lot of fun, that I took with some friends, and we made dumb YouTube videos, and learned about like cameras, and I was the play by, we broadcast our local high school games on TV. So I was the color guy for women's basketball games, girls basketball games, and that was a mess, man. Like we were just like, I remember one game, coming out of halftime, I said on air, I was like, oh yeah, I just got back from the locker room chatting with the coach, and he was saying they want to do this and this and this, and I was just like totally making it up. Just so that was ridiculous. But yeah, no, I totally stumbled into journalism. It was because at Oregon we had like those introduction days or whatever. The pun was intended, but and you picked a school you wanted to like learn about, and it was like business and science, and I think journalism was the third one. I know journalism was the third one because that's what I picked. And so that kind of set me on that course. And as an undergrad, I was maybe going to take go into law was my initial plan, because they always ask you what you want to do. And I thought, I don't know, I guess I'll say law school just to get them off my backs.
Buy yourself a little time.
Right. Yeah. Right. But there's no like pre-law at U of O, like an undergraduate study. So you basically just, you get an undergrad in whatever you want, and then go to law school. And so I went to like one law meeting my freshman year. It was like in this dark room, in like that math building, that crappy math building.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And it was like hot and stuffy, and there's like 8 of us. And they overwhelmed me, man. They did a bad job of convincing me to go into law, or maybe they did a good job of weeding me out, because they had a list of like 30 things I had to be doing, and I was just thinking, oh my god, this is intense.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to do this. And while they're overwhelming me with this list, I'm taking J classes and getting to know teachers and other students and having a good time with it. And so that kind of, I think that was the start of the shift for me. And yeah, by end of freshman year, I basically had changed my mindset of what I was going to do. So it was kind of, yeah, but no, it wasn't like I was, 5 years old pretending to be a reporter or something.
Yeah. I remember like heading out of high school, I was like, oh, so my dad, he's kind of like the entrepreneur that likes to start up random projects and then see how that goes. I remember we started like a clothing line that actually took off for a little bit. He made business cards and all that.
What was your clothing line? What was it called?
So it's like To the Extreme, but we changed it to have the number 2 DX3M.
Nice.
So yeah, he had this crazy idea. It's like, oh, why don't you just like run this business and then really take it up? And I was like, that was my thought at first. So basically like yourself, it's like, let's go look at the business school. But then I just noticed that journalism is just like the fact that U of O is also like a top journalism school that did kind of help me go over there. But
they got you with the prestige. You couldn't, they pulled you in.
Yeah, he did. Plus, it's talking to athletes and doing sports stuff.
Yeah.
That's always like, ooh, cool. Maybe I'll be at the sideline of the Blazer games or something time and just
there you go.
Dana Altman with the.
They don't put you in the with the internship. I was there a few times. They don't put you on the court unless you're taking photos. They stick you way up in the rafters in the media section. As an auxiliary media person, I was nowhere near the court.
Yeah. I think so. After my time with Daily Emerald, I've also, between Daily Emerald and Duck TV, I was a reporter for this like kind of third branch of Duck Sports, and they gave me all the passes for like the women's basketball game or just basketball games in general. That like press section at Matt Knight Arena is kind of nice.
Oh yeah, the U of O facilities are really great. It kind of spoils you. I mean, they're on par with like professional setups and stuff. And when you go to other schools, I covered a few events at other schools throughout my time at U of O, and it's just night and day. how nice things are. And it I will say Oregon is almost too polished in terms of the PR machine there for
Mm.
sports is so debilitating as a student reporter.
Keoni Chats is proudly sponsored by Vibes Training. Dylan Vibes is a good friend and former guest of the show, and after he did his time as a trainer for those big name fitness companies, he wanted to challenge himself and become his own man in his own business. So he opened up Vibes Training. So Vibes Training is also seen on Instagram under Vibes Training PDX. So if you follow that, you'll be able to see some of the workouts he's doing outside. That's key because it is springtime, and being outside and getting a workout in is what a lot of people, okay, not a lot of people, that's what I would prefer, because I want to be out in the sunshine. I want to be out in the sun and also get in a little bit of better shape. So go to vibestraining.com, click on the blue button at the top of the screen to register and become a client of Dylan Vibes. After you fill in that information fields, you will be prompted to download the app. And so after downloading the app, that's where you'll have access to all of his workout plans or just workout exercises that can range from 5 to 60 minutes. And it can have you needing anything from some bands to some dumbbells, barbells. And also he does have a good amount of workouts that are, body weight only. And also he has been creating workouts with everyday household items. So if you have a backpack or if you have a step stool, he'll have a workout for you. So check that out and go to vibestraining.com, blue button at the top of the screen, get registered and become Vibes Fit today.
And it really it turns you off PR people a little bit. And I will say since then, stuff I've covered like city PR, everyone's got a PR person. Like they're a lot more helpful, I guess. I don't want to be mean to the U of O PR people, but as a student reporter, it was like pulling teeth sometimes trying to set things up. And I do get it a little bit. Like, we come and go, every 4 years, a whole new wave comes in. But it was definitely like, it felt like you had to really fight just to get a 2-minute conversation with someone.
I don't think there is, but I feel like there was some sort of like hierarchy for when it came to like, if you want to talk to the football team, you have to go through this X amount of people, and then you have to like
you have to like sacrifice a goat and pray to the Dark Lord and make a sizable donation to Phil Knight. Yeah, for sure.
Then you can talk to Cristobal or whoever. So it's like, whoa. But with I know when I was with the Emerald, like I just covered I think it was men's tennis and women's golf, and I just remember like the guy I talked to who's super nice. I think maybe Joey probably connected us, but he was super nice, and then it was like pretty easy to like get interviews with Rhea Scott or just whoever this women's golfing coach. But I was like, I assume it would be much more difficult if I was doing basketball or football.
Yeah, the best for me was the club sports at U of O, because you can build those relationships, and I'm always drawn to the stories where people want are like people who aren't in the limelight but have interesting things to say or share or are doing interesting things, and I've tried to keep that mindset now, because I just think that's more fun when you interview someone who never expected to be interviewed, whereas on the other side you have to like beg and plead for an interview kind of thing, and they're fielding hundreds of them. I just think you can, like, as journalists, we can shine a light on things and causes and people that are just fun to write about at the end of the day. And so that's for me what kind of keeps it all going, is just these. And so at U of O, it was the club sports. It was like the rugby team and stuff like that, lacrosse, boys lacrosse and stuff like that. Just a lot of fun to write about. And obviously it's fun to write the kind of bigger sports too, but it's just a different beast, and you just get more one-on-one FaceTime. I remember there was a rugby story. Their coach is still Facebook friends with me. I don't know if he's still the coach there. Yeah, he wishes me happy birthday on Facebook whenever, which is kind of sweet of him. But I remember there was a story where I was profiling like 2 or 3 of the, I forget the context of the story, but the rugby guys just like invited me to their like hangout house. It was like not a frat house, but basically the rugby frat house. And I'm just like sitting on their couch, and their dogs like hanging out with us, and we're just all hanging, drinking beers and doing this interview. And I'm thinking, like, contrast that with the sterilized kind of upper level sports. It's just a different connection with people, which is fun to write about.
Yeah, so like I think my second or third episode, it was with someone who was I think he was a social media person for club club basketball for Oregon. So I asked him, like, oh, how is this? Like, how is it for taking photos? He's like, oh, it's so much easier to operate with the club level, just because everyone's so like free and open to talk with you or do photos with you, versus the amount of filters you have to go through before you can finally get the nugget.
Right.
And so obviously with writing for Daily Emerald, it's so much easier to kind of commingle with your person you're trying to interview and try to have a relationship afterwards. How is it now, being a reporter for Gresham Outlook, when let's say let's say the mayor wants to have a beer with you and hang out with you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would do that. I don't know if I would say, I wouldn't suggest like getting beers with your subjects or sources, but for the mayor, I mean, you go through his assistant and stuff like that. And I try my best. I try to go through the proper channels for most things, because I just think it's a good way to keep people happy. And so if I want to interview someone at the city, even if it's like just a fun profile about talking with one of the parks guys about trees or something, I still will go through the PR people and set it up that way. And then when it's just a random person, you just email them. And a lot, I find it's best just to, we don't have an office anymore. We got rid of our office with COVID. So, but even when we had an office space, I didn't like doing interviews there. It just felt so sterile. And so I like to go out, either meet them somewhere in the community or go to a coffee shop. And part of that is too, just getting photos for the story. It's more interesting to be out in a space where they operate, as opposed to, in a conference room or something.
Yeah. You get to actually see them in action. You get to see them do their thing, and it's like, oh, okay, more dynamic photos.
Right.
When I got back into this journey of using my degree, which you can't really see.
Yeah, where you got a frame. I got mine framed. It's off, it's that way.
Well, like at my last backdrop, yeah, you can see like over my shoulder. It's like
Nice.
awesome, but now it's like over to the right, so it's like, oh wow.
Yeah, you're in that new spot. Your new digs.
The new digs. I'm in a brand new chair too, so I'm trying to get my ass molded.
Gotta like wiggle around a little bit. Yeah,
a little bit. I feel like I'm sitting on top of a hill, where it's like I'm leaning one over the other.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. It's like I might stretch a few times during the interview, but it's like,
Yeah, go ahead. If you got to do a little calisthenics, go for it. I can hold down the fort.
Thanks, man. I knew you could, because you have so much experience with being on a podcast.
That's right.
A co-host for the Boo Boys, which
I'm the founder of the Boo Boys.
The founder.
There's no co-host. I'm the main deal.
The main honcho. Where
yeah.
So you're talking about it, how this is actually your second iteration of a podcast,
right? Yeah. The first one, my buddy reached out and wanted to do a movie podcast, and I was happy to join in. I'd never done a podcast before. I'd done a little bit of radio. A lot of times some radio people want to talk about a story you've written. And so I agreed, and man, that first podcast was a lot of fun. We didn't know what we were doing, and I still don't really know what I'm doing with podcasting. For me, so our current podcast, The Boo Boys, is a horror movie podcast, and I sort of treat it like a book club setup, where we basically take turns putting forward a movie to watch, a scary movie, and then we talk about it, and we happen to record it, and we put it out there, and like 5 people listen to it. But it's fun. I like horror movies a lot, and the whole idea of it began because one of my buddies hates horror movies. Like, he'd seen maybe like 4 of them in his life and like despised them with a passion. And he made the mistake of telling me that one day. I knew, but we were like chatting, and I was going through Netflix and Hulu and all that stuff. And I was I was all excited. It was like probably around October or something, and I was just looking at all the horror movies out there and recommending stuff. And he told me I'm never gonna watch any of this. Like, you might as well stop telling me. And I thought, really? Well, what if we make a podcast and we talk about it? And so we did, and we do, and I think he's getting there. We're on season 3. We just put out season 3. Mm-hmm. Watched Lake Mungo and The Descent, 2 horror films, and it's interesting seeing someone who hates horror and like was terrified of horror movies slowly get desensitized to it, right? I guess. Yeah. I think for me, what's interesting about horror films is there's such a wide range where you can get the dumb, schlocky, campy, funny, good bad movie stuff, and there's hundreds of those. But then on the other end, you get these like directors, especially in the last couple of years, like Jordan Peele and Ari Aster and guys like that, who are doing these like really interesting, almost art house films, and they just happen to be set in horror. And I don't think you get that as much, in other genres, that wide variety of just like nonsense and like Oscar bait stuff. And so it makes it interesting to talk about, and I like watching them. And so yeah, it's just a lot of fun. We're nowhere near as professional as this setup. We're like filming in a cave basically.
Yeah, because I listened to a few of your episodes or earlier episodes. I think
thank
you. Nightmare on Elm Street, Heredity, because I didn't see Heredity, but like there is this guy on YouTube that does kind of like do the quick rundown of the movie.
Yeah.
I watch him if I'm like doing something else, so like a little bit of background noise. But yeah, I know of like Heredity, kind of like how the I'm not gonna spoil it for people. Also, I know what's going to happen from A, B, C, D, E. Mm-hmm. And so to hear him talk about this moment and then how like it freaked him out, I was like, yes, I agree.
Yeah, we definitely spoil the movies on our podcast, and I've just now in season 3 I've decided to start warning people about spoilers, right? Which is like super professional of me, but yeah, we've done some fun ones. Definitely some episodes. The worst is when we watch a movie, because half the time none of us have seen the movie when we watch it, and when we watch a movie where all 3 of us didn't find it scary, and we just like spend the whole podcast basically just joking and riffing on it. Mm-hmm. That's always the hardest. The best is when it's a movie that legitimately scares at least my one friend who hates horror. Yeah, that's more fun to me. And we're going, we're trying season 3 to really pull out all the stops, and I've got some ideas for stuff to bring out that I think will really just scare the hell out of them. So that's the hope.
So how do you know when to switch it from season 1 to season 2? It's just so hard. I could not know. So like, yeah, I just jumped to season 2, quote unquote, and I've done season 1's like 40 episodes. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. So my built-in one, I definitely was flying by the seat of my pants with stuff. But as we're going in season 1, I thought, 13 episodes could be a good time to call that season 1. And so we do, every season is 13 episodes plus a few bonus ones thrown in. Obviously with like the Friday the 13th and unlucky stuff. But so that's how we decided. But it could have been something, in another life, we'd be going to like 666 would be our first season. So,
well, isn't also 13 is an unlucky number?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And Friday the 13th and Jason and yeah, just being an unlucky number. And it's been, pretty unlucky for us, I guess, too. But it just was an easy way to split it up.
There's so let's say you guys have like a shared notes or shared Google Docs where you can type in, hey, let's watch this on this day or this day on this day. Do you guys have some sort of like rules? Like you can't be, it has to be horror, it can't be a horror comedy, it has to have some sort of level of blood and gore, or is it just like
well, it's bold of you to assume we're as organized as having a shared Google Doc. It's more me and my other. So there's 3 of us, and the one who hates horror movies gets to pick, and we present 2 options to him. So I pick a movie, and my other friend picks a movie, and then the guy who hates horror movies tries to blindly pick between those 2. But it's more like I'll text and say, hey, I'm going to pick this movie. What are you going to pick? And occasionally we'll do like internal theme stuff. Like probably in an upcoming episode, we'll do like we have to choose foreign horror or something like that. But the main guiding thing for us is just to try to pick things we think will be scary.
Yeah.
And again, sometimes it fails. Start of season 2, I picked Scanners by Cronenberg, who's kind of like the master of body horror stuff. And I thought this would be great, Scanners, and I knew like the famous head exploding scene.
Yes.
And we get like halfway through the movie and I go, fuck, this isn't scary. Like this is like more sci-fi and it's interesting and it's a fun movie, but there's like zero scares in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up messaging the guys and saying and punting on that, and we ended up watching Halloween for that, and it worked out well because it came out on Halloween. But yeah, so sometimes that happens where we'll pick a movie, and it's just not scary. But usually we just go forward with it as long as it just has to have a horror tag on it, and at least be a reasonable expectation of being scary. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Probably Hereditary, our very first episode, is what the one guy says has been the scariest. So I'm constantly trying to find something to top that. I don't know if I ever will. We've hit we peaked in episode 1, which is kind of a bummer, but
but you did say that, and then you're like, well, thanks for tuning in, guys. We're
right,
done
yeah. Goodbye.
Bye.
I'm gonna have to get like some crazy like torture porn or something just to even have a hope. Like I've built, I've backed myself in this corner where we started off way too strong, and now we're scrambling to try to match that. But we'll see. Hopefully this season we'll get him.
I know. So my brother lived with a couple friends. Oh gosh, maybe like at least 5 or so years ago, and they were super into horror and super into gore. So when I like spent time with him, I'd watch some movies with him, and I just get freaked out. There was one movie.
Yeah, give us a help us out. Pick a movie for us here.
It's a series, VHS.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one was probably like the scariest because there's like, for those of you that don't know what VHS is basically a short of like a series of short films directed by different people. It's the most mundane one, but it's a home invasion, and the guy gets spoiler for people.
See, that's good. You're better than I am. I just barrel on forward without doing the warning. So
so like it's crazy. They're like, the guy gets stabbed while he's sleeping, and that part was the freakiest thing for me growing up, because I was just like, oh god, I'm gonna look into a corner, I'm gonna see someone there with a knife, and then the mind starts playing all these tricks. The more like early on into the horror movie,
yeah.
Career.
Yeah, I think horror is the scariest in the first third or whatever, when they haven't shown the monster or haven't done their first kill, and it's that anticipation of how far it. For me, it's always how far is this horror movie going to go, and a lot of times by the time they reveal the monster or do that first kill, you go, okay, like that wasn't that bad. That they gave you their worst early, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
But it's that build up, the anticipation. We watched a movie in season 1, As Above, So Below, where they basically go into the Paris catacombs, and the first half is basically them just crawling through claustrophobic spaces, which for me was infinitely more scary than when they did these weird like nightmare things,
like the supernatural things. You're like,
right,
damn, okay, this is fine. But
yeah, because then it's like, well, I'm never going to be attacked by a nightmare hell monster thing. I could
hold on.
Yeah. But I could get stuck in a cave, like that's way scarier to me. So like for you, being scared of a dude coming into your room and stabbing you, is scarier to me than like Paranormal Activity, where there's a demon turning your lights on and off or whatever. So
yeah, just flicking it on and off, on and
yeah,
off.
yeah. I guess it's scary because your electric bill is going to jump, but
oh god, that would just shock me to death. Are you an adrenaline junkie? Do you like kind of being on the edge of your
God,
seat?
no. I hate roller coasters. I hate heights. No, I'm not. No, not at all.
So then
I'm a movie junkie, and so for me,
okay.
I force myself to like horror because of those, because I didn't see Get Out when it first came out, even though it got rave reviews, because I in my mind I hated horror movies, and so I didn't see it. And Get Out's not even that scary. It's just a great movie,
Mhm.
but I had written it off because of the genre. And around that time, whenever that movie came out, I guess 2018 or something,
Yeah,
maybe earlier.
I think so. Yeah.
Um, that's when I basically started forcing myself to watch horror movies, especially the newer kind of well-regarded award stuff. And then from there it just kind of snowballed. But no, yeah, no, I wouldn't. Yeah, it has nothing to do with adrenaline. It's more just like an appreciation of filmmaking, I think.
I dated this girl a couple, maybe a year or two ago,
Mm,
and it's around Halloween, and she's like, she's so jumpy. She's just easily scared,
mm.
but she wanted to go to haunted houses because she liked to
Was it one of those like I'm not a big haunted house guy, especially the contact ones. So is where they like beating you up as you go through?
This one was not context, so there's
Okay,
more of
that's
like,
better.
because this was actually at the this is right next to the convention center,
Mm.
and in the basement underneath I think it's where the
It's Memorial, right?
yeah, Memorial,
Memorial Coliseum or whatever.
where the Winterhawks play once in a
Mm-hmm.
while. So it was just more of like loud noises and a lot of like jump scares. So I was like, why are we going here if you are gonna scream the whole time and not, be
She wanted you to
terrified?
comfort her, man. She
Obviously,
wanted
but
her handsome boyfriend to like put his arm around her.
she
Come on now.
there was one time where like she actually like got so scared she fell to the ground. Just like her knees collapsed. I was just
Mm.
like, she was like holding on to me. I was like, oh god, I'm going down.
Yeah, you could have done like really romantic, like carry her through this haunted house, dude. You would have won so many points.
I know. She's
You
no
blew
longer
it.
she's no longer in the picture though. So obviously
Yeah, no
that was
kidding.
why. That
Yeah,
was why.
no kidding. That didn't work out. You left
Damn
her laying on
it.
the ground crying in a haunted house as you ran out. I could have told you that one.
I may have pushed some people to the side, but like, get out of my way, get out of my
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I haven't been in a haunted house in a long time. Uh, and I know that you always hear ads for that one at the convention center, but I don't know. It's just like not in my. For me, Halloween I love Halloween. I think it's a great time of year. I love the fall, but I'm not into the whole like haunted house costume thing. I more just appreciate just the general vibe of Halloween, I guess.
yeah.
Candy and for me now with journalism, that's another thing with you so often find yourself working on like Memorial Day, for example. I'll be covering some veteran events, and they're really fun events, and I love covering the VFW. But I can't do like a long 3-day weekend off camping because I have to be here to take photos, and so that's something you kind of get used to as well.
Yeah, I don't think that you have a regular Monday through Friday 8 to 5 shift when it comes to journalism. It's like you have to be ready all the time.
Yeah, literally, I keep my email open 24/7, and I have like a news alert system open 24/7, and I just check it. I'll get home from a walk and I'll check it, and I'll, you know, be making dinner and I'll be checking it. So it's just like a constant check, and you don't, like this weekend, nothing really crazy happened, but you're always ready if there's some sort of news. And then in sports, sports happen Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. So you just get used to sports taking up your evenings. I don't really, I do a weekly sports story now, but so it's less like game coverage, but you definitely like if you want to get into sports reporting, you got to be mentally ready to give up those things. I mean, I remember in college, some of the other sports guys, I'd be out covering something and I get done and it would be, like 10 o'clock on a Friday. And then I go meet up with some people to hang out. But you just have to be willing to put that time aside.
So when it comes to shopping online, it's such a big thing. Amazon, and then you
Mm.
got eBay and not really.
I've started doing Barnes and Noble for my books. I've been reading a lot. I used to read all the time when I was younger, and I've been reading more during the pandemic. And Amazon kind of screwed me over a couple times where I'd buy a book it was like one of the third party ones. I would buy a book, and then like 2 weeks later, they'd send me a message like, "Hey, we can't, we're giving you a refund. We can't send this to you." And I'm thinking, what the hell? Like, I've been waiting 2 weeks for this book, and all of a sudden, Barnes and Noble is like my knight in shining armor, and they come, it's relatively cheaper compared to Amazon, and I ordered 2 books the other day, and they showed up like the next day. Like, it's just been way better. So that's my plug. That's your sponsor for this episode, Barnes and Noble, for all your book shopping needs.
So Barnes and Noble, money, please, money.
Yeah,
But
yeah, and some books. That'd be cool.
eh, so I gone back into reading also because I was like, why not? It's a break from screens. I'm like either A, talking
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
someone, or B, on my phone or editing. So I've gone back to reading. Powell's, great place to check for books.
Yeah, are they back open for in-person visits?
I know the one on Burnside is, and I think one
Okay.
in Beaverton is also, because that's where I got some books.
Yeah,
There's
Powell's is dangerous for me. I go into Powell's, I don't know, a giant bookstore in Portland, and I'll walk out like with a like $80, $100 bill kind of thing. Like
right.
I can't help it. I just buy it's like, you go through and you just can't help but buy out like 30 books. I have a huge stack of books I'm waiting to read, but if I go to Powell's today, I'll end up buying like 8 or 9 new books.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I'm a junkie. I can't go in there.
Because I got 3 books at one trip, and then I read one of them, and I bought those 3 because it's like, oh, it's only like $7, $8,
Mm,
$9. So it's like, might as well. But so I was saying that, like, with Amazon, like if I order something for this podcast, like a new mic, for example, I'm
mm.
obsessed over it. I'm like checking. I'm like, okay, cool. It's progressing. It's here, and I have it. So for you having to do that for your job,
Mm.
how exhausting is that? What do you do to, like, say, what point is it where you're just like, I need to put my phone down because I just need to not look at that for at least X amount of minutes?
I think it's just building in breaks. I'm probably not great at it. I'm probably better than some people are with it, but I go out on a walk and I won't check during that, or I'll sit down and watch a movie, or I'll be eating dinner and I won't check. So it's just kind of building in breaks with it. And then, I think it's just an aspect of life in general. We always have our phones around. And so not only am I getting alerts of like someone texting me, I might get an alert of like, you know, Gresham Council passes some measure that then I'll go and write about. So it's just kind of like that extra layer of stuff. But the nice thing is with journalism, it's not as much of a 9 to 5 where you go to an office and you sit there for 8 hours and then you go home. So you can have more breaks during the day. And I forget that with non-journalism people, where I'll like text them or try to call them at like noon on a Tuesday, just because I'm sitting there with no stories to work on immediately. And they message me back like, "Hey, I'm at work. Like, what are you doing? I can't talk to you right now." Like, "Oh yeah, like I have to wait till 5 to talk to you." But so that is a nice aspect. But then it bleeds into the rest of your days. So you're never really off. You can go on vacation or whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
um, I mean, I've been on vacation. I was in Chicago visiting my sister, and I get a phone call, and it was somebody with some story they wanted to set up an interview for. And so I'm like in Chicago on my phone, like setting up an interview for when I get back. So I think it's just like, I could have ignored that call and then dealt with it when I got home, but it's like, why not? I don't know. It's like a 5-minute phone call, set up an interview. It's usually not a big deal.
Yeah. So, excuse me. So there's a guy that I did Duck TV with that I
Mm,
interviewed for the show, Cale Newton. He actually ended up not pursuing journalism after college. He ended up becoming a teacher, which is great. And hearing you talk about how you are basically have to be available at any point of the day,
mm.
were you ever thinking like, why am I doing this again? What's the purpose of this? What's going on? Why am I here?
Oh, I mean, yeah, but I think everyone has questions like that. I don't know if it's around the time. I think for me, it's like I may have those feelings occasionally, but then you get a nice message from someone about a story you wrote, or recently I've been doing a series of stories on the senior center with COVID. They've been struggling with funding, and so I've just been just kind of writing them stories in terms of this is what they're looking for, send donations if you can. And it's helped them. They've gotten donations, and more people just kind of aware of them. They've been here forever, but sometimes you forget about these nonprofit groups and stuff like that. And so I think that helps lift your spirits a lot, where it's hard in a job to directly point to something and say like this made a difference for someone, or this was really impactful for a group. And so, at the base level, if I start feeling down, I can just, write a story about a nonprofit and feel good about myself again, or, that kind of stuff. So I'm not plagued by doubts, I guess.
Keoni Chats is probably sponsored by Cove Hard Yerba Mate. Josh Mackler is a good friend and former guest of the show, and he is part owner of the company. And after his episode, he sent me a pack of all 4 flavors that he offers. So that is a orange colada, a mojito. He has a lemonade and a berry flavor. So the lemonade and the berry flavor. So the lemonade is starting to become one of my favorites because I do, again, citrusy. I love a little bit of the fruitiness of it all. So what's great about it is that I drink it and then I don't feel so heavy. So I don't feel so bogged down, basically like beer, because I'm still a big beer drinker. But when I want to just have loosen up a little bit, but not feel so heavy, then this is the perfect option for you and for me. So what you can do to look at some of Josh's options, you go to hardyerba.com, HARDYERBAMATE.com. Look at some of the options as you're scrolling through. He does have the 4 flavors. He also has some merch, so some t-shirts and some hats. So once you find what you like, go to use the discount code, I should say. Use the discount code of Keoni Chats Cove. That's KEONICHATS KOVE for 25% off your total purchase. So that's huge, because that's 25%. That's a lot, and so I'm very grateful for Josh for creating that for me, and I'm always gonna help put his company's name out there, because this is the first ever time I've had a discount code, so this is kind of crazy for me to wrap my head around. But I want everyone to enjoy Cove and also enjoy responsibly, as it is an alcoholic beverage, so that means you have to be over 21 to purchase any alcohol from Josh. But you can still use a discount when you want to purchase, let's say, some hats or a t-shirt or a sweater or whatever that may be. So go to hardyerba.com, HARDYERBAMATE.com. Use a discount code before you purchase of Keoni Chats Cove, KEONICHATS KOVE for 25% off your total purchase. So must be, again, 21 and over to purchase any alcohol from Josh and Cove, and please enjoy responsibly. Yeah. So, for the show, it does focus kind of. I try to at least get it focused on like some anxieties, some overthinkingness, and just how do you handle it, because I know I have that all the time. And it's like when it came to this moving, I said in my last week's intro, it's like I was overthinking everything, and I was stressing about this all the time. And then once it was done, I was just like, oh God, why did I do all that? Did you ever, like, when a story gets released, like, do you think about the kind of after effects? Like, I was like, obviously you can't tell the numbers. So like, oh, I say this nonprofit. Maybe they'll like have, for me, I was like, oh, this nonprofits got mentioned. Maybe I'll bring in like 4 of the people mentioning that they heard this show. They heard about this nonprofit through the show. But it's like, in reality, it's like, no. Did you
Yeah.
ever think about that?
Yeah, I think there's always a level of stress when you first have something go out in the world that you've written. Because at the base level, you go through and you edit, and you have editors edit, and you have, we have multiple levels at the newspaper who check a story, but inevitably something will go out with a typo, or there'll just be a factual error. And that's happened to me, and that happens to everyone. And the first couple times when you get that email from someone, and sometimes they're angry, sometimes they just want it fixed, but they point out an issue in your story, your stomach just drops, and you think, oh my God, like you have those feelings of being like a failure and you just feel awful. But it's just kind of, that happens especially early on. and and you run a correction and you fix the mistake. It's usually not the end of the world. It might feel like the end of the world early on. One big one for me that happened early on was, I think it was my first year writing for the Gresham paper. I had done a story on like the local teddy bear parade, which is hosted by the Seroptimists. I had written in like the subhead, the deck head, how much money they had raised. And I think I'd said it was from entry fees. I said they raised 10,000 from entry fees, but it was entry fees and sponsorships. And man, they were upset. And it was incorrect, but they were really upset that because they felt it made it seem like they were like charging an arm and a leg to be in their parade, and they felt like it was disrespecting the sponsors. And I felt bad, and it was like, my third month on the job, and I was like kind of freaked out, like, oh man, this is bad. They're like really upset. I made the corrections and I worked with them, and I think that's like, I think journalists need to remember that, is that for the people you're writing about, they're gonna be really upset in the moment, even if it's kind of an innocuous mistake like that. But you just kind of work with them, and you have to fix the issues, keep responding to them, and work with them. And it's a yearly thing, and they haven't, they invite me back every year, so it wasn't like I ruined. I still am invited to the teddy bear parade, thankfully. And they have other events too. But and so there's stuff like that where, and the other one other issue I made early on was, there was a local church that had cut down some like old famous trees in town. I had some people on the city tree commission tell me like it was a big travesty, and like how could they do this. And so I had all these quotes from these tree people saying like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened, and kind of implying that maybe there wasn't the correct permits. That ended up not being the case. But and I couldn't get in touch with the church folks because it was like a Thursday or Friday or something, and no one was around. And I felt this pressure to rush this story out, like it was some sort of breaking news story that had to be put out instantly. And so I did, before I got in touch with the church. And I in hindsight, I should have just waited. Who cares if that tree cutting story, in a perfect world, it goes, any news story goes up instantly. But if I just would have waited and spoken with the church folks, it would just, in general, was a better story with their side of things, because the tree people were still upset regardless, but the church at least were able to share their plans, and they planted new trees. In fact, that cherry blossom photo that you talked about with my mustache, that was taken at one of the trees they ended up planting. So
Okay.
yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
that's just a good example of, obviously there's some situations where you got to get the story out instantly, and then kind of add to it as it goes on. But in a case like that, I didn't need to rush a tree cutting story. I could have waited 1 day or 2 days to give the church folks a chance to reply, and then if they don't reply, then you can run it, and then but I think that's just another thing, is just be aware that not everything has to be instant. You kind of get, I think in J school and just in journalism, you get this idea like you have to be first, you have to get it out instantly. But I think it's in general, it's better just to write good stories, and that sometimes that takes more time.
Yeah, I know with so editing, I do all the editing for the
Mm,
show, and I I do find moments where I'm just like, why did I say that? Or like, let's say I do miss a follow-up question, and
mm,
I get so hard on myself. I'm just
mm,
like, God, I actually have to like. I think there was one time early on the episodes where I just had to get up away from the computer because I'm just like, I missed a perfectly great opportunity to say why. I need to like either think about something else, or I just need to like take a pause from this for a little bit, or I just need to talk to someone to like get all my frustrations out. Luckily, I was with my brother at that time.
mm,
So for you, when you do find that error, like let's say an error that is not super noticeable, but for you it's like huge.
mm.
How do you kind of talk yourself down from getting all riled up because you made that slip up?
I think we're always our own harshest critics, and I think that's just part of the game. you're always going to be harder on your stuff than other people are. I have stories I'll write where I think, I'm like, this sucks, like I hate this just didn't turn out how I wanted, but I'm out of time, so like this is what it is.
Mm.
And I'll submit it, and I'll end up getting decent feedback on it, but I still, like, a part of me is like, man, like that was just a bad story, like I'm just not impressed with that. And I'll go back, and some of the stuff I wrote in college, I'll occasionally will pop back up, and I'll read it and be like you read it now and you go, man, I would write this so differently.
Right?
Um,
Yeah.
but I think, anytime you create something, and I think this is probably true of any creative person. I think, the greatest writer in the world probably reads their first novel they wrote and thinks, I should have done this differently. But I think more powerful than worrying about what you did in the previous one is just to try to do better on your next one.
Yeah.
And so instead of beating yourself up over a mistake, or just not even a mistake, but like if you didn't like the way you wrote a story, or you recorded, you didn't like the way you were in a podcast, just to try to do better on the next one. And I think that's more what I focus on, is just every year as a journalist, I try to do better. And I'm better than I was, as a freshman, in college, for sure.
Right?
Or, my high school papers are, like, embarrassing to read now, but
Yeah. And plus, along with podcasting and writing, you're also photographers. So I assume the more times you get like behind the camera and try it, you're gonna get better. It's
oh
just a matter
yeah,
of
yeah.
practicing.
Photography is one of those things too, where my equipment's not great. It's just kind of the nature of the beast with journalism now. Is most places, especially smaller community papers, you have to know how to take your own photos. You have to know how to edit. And so I take my own photos. We don't have a staff photographer in Gresham. We have a few in Portland who help out occasionally, but you can only do so much with the equipment you have. So you learn how to compose shots, or just base lighting, and you just make it work. With news photography and sports photography, the action's happening. So you just take what you can get, and you do a little bit of post edit, color stuff, and you're good to go. So that's more just about being in the right place at the right time. Some of the portrait stuff sometimes I feel like is lacking on my end, just because I don't have that really nice portrait camera and the flash and stuff like that. But that's where I try to get people doing things actively. If I'm interviewing, a street repair guy, instead of just having him stand there with a really nice portrait photo that I don't really have access to equipment to do, instead I'll get a photo of him like fixing a street, filling in a pothole. I just think that's a way around it, is just kind of put your people in interesting setups, and then you don't have to stress as much about getting that perfect, uh, you know, magazine cover photograph.
Yeah. And I remember when I was writing for the Torch, for student newspaper for Lane Community College down in
Mm-hmm.
Eugene. There was a story I did where I covered these two twins that joined the cross country team.
Mm.
So I talked with one of she's not like a main photographer, but she's like a photographer that knows how to use a camera. I was like,
Mm.
oh, cool. So she took a few like portrait shots of them just kind of standing there on the track and smiling, and then when she showed it to the editor, or just the editor in chief, and she was like, can you actually get them to do something, because
Mm.
this is nothing very fun. And that was actually my idea. I said to her, I was like, do you want to get them to like stretch or do some running? And she's like, oh no, we'll just do this. And I was like, okay. So when the editor was like, yeah, we need them to do stuff, be dynamic, I was in my head, I was like, I told you.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that from editors all the time. You turn in 5 photos for a story, but if 4 of them are your person just awkwardly smiling at the camera and with different backgrounds, it's like you can't run that photo 4 times. And so you got to have like different, a variety of shots composition wise, and page designers are going to be drawn to that more than like the perfect one photo.
Yeah. They like to have At least for me, for example, when it comes to, so when I announce your episode, I'll do it about 3 times. It's like I don't want the normal standard photo of you right now just looking straight at me. It's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want you right now, you with short hair, and
Yeah.
then maybe
Oh,
you. Oh, I know, right?
wow.
Oh,
That's exciting.
not saying you should cut your hair. I'm just saying that I like having a little variety, a little
I know.
slice of
I could
life.
do it right now on camera. We could do, a live cut. It'd
this
be pretty exciting.
this does go on YouTube also. So you'll have an audience. You'll have
There you
a
go.
visual audience. So outside of all this creative things you're doing with the podcast, writing, and the photography, what do you do to like relax? What do you do to like stop yourself from running 1,000 miles an hour?
I've been cooking more. I've always been since college. I've always been decent at cooking. Decent, like I'm trying new recipes and stuff. But um, I've been doing more baking, which has been interesting. Uh, I tend to be very nonchalant when it comes to measuring stuff, and so if a recipe calls for 2 tablespoons, I'll just eyeball it. And
Yeah,
I learned in baking that doesn't really fly. You have to be pretty precise with stuff.
a little bit, a little bit.
But yeah, that's been fun. I've been doing like bao and like breakfast bread kind of stuff. I made homemade biscuits last week, which were pretty tasty. It's a fun way to to spend time because the end result is you have hopefully good food to eat. So, you kill some time making it and then you spend multiple days eating it, which
Yeah.
is the best part, obviously. Um,
That is the fun part about cooking. It's like you're taking all these little elements, these random things, and throwing it into something that you hope tastes good. Maybe.
yeah, usually, put some sauce on it and it usually tastes decent.
That's
And,
I've noticed that. Yeah, I've noticed that. It's like hot sauce can kind of must like cover up
oh yeah,
anything that
it cures a
sucks.
lot of stuff. Yeah. If your mouth is burning, who cares what it tastes like?
You just eat more because your mouth is
You're right.
burning. It's like let's calm this fire down.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so your Twitter, I didn't go all the way to the beginning like I do with like Instagram or
Oh,
Facebook.
you didn't find my first tweet ever?
That I feel like would be a very long day to just scroll down,
I
down,
think my
down,
first
down.
tweet ever, I think we did like an icebreaker in, I don't, in the Emerald, the student paper where they found like our first tweets. And I'm pretty sure mine's about Brandon Roy was my very first tweet, which makes
Oh,
sense.
yeah, yeah.
My Twitter is basically dumb jokes, basketball, and movie opinions, basically.
So you're also a fan of a very popular live reality TV show, Bachelor.
I am a Bachelor fan. It's a weird time to be a Bachelor fan with all the changes happening. The ousting of Chris Harrison after those dumb comments he made on a podcast. I think it was a podcast.
Yeah.
I think the show in general, I've been a fan of the show. I started watching during Brad Womack, I think was his last name, season. He's the one who said no to both girls at the end. If someone hasn't seen The Bachelor, they have no clue what I'm talking about. But he said no to both of them, and then that's kind of when I first started watching. And the show has hit a little bit of wall for me personally, and I think it's because the producers have always meddled, obviously, but
Mhm.
it's like too much obvious meddling. So the most recent season, they brought in, they're going through the normal stuff, and then they bring in like 6 new girls on episode 5. And it just like creates this huge issue. And we spend like the next 3 episodes of like this inner house war. And it's just kind of annoying to me because the early season stuff, the drama felt more natural, I guess. It was just like 2 people who didn't like each other. But now it's just so obvious, this like meddling from the producers. And I don't know if they just feel stressed to make something happen, but it takes away from, not that I really care about like the romance side of stuff, but for people who want to actually see the contestants and learn about them on these dates and stuff, it's not happening. For me, I just want to see the craziness of it all, but I don't want to feel like the producers are doing it themselves.
Yeah.
Um, And then for the love of God, they gotta start vetting some of these candidates better, because this is like 5 seasons in a row where we've had some like huge scandal from one of them because of like racist tweets or stuff like that. And it's like I would hire like 100 private investigators.
Oh
Just
yeah.
there's so many people in this country. You got to be able to find 30 attractive people to show up on your show that don't have some like terrible racist past. Like
Yeah.
it'd be nice to go through a season without some sort of scandal like ruining things.
But wouldn't that make it a little boring though? I mean, you get a little excitement out of this.
That's what people think, but we had plenty of craziness 10 seasons ago, 15 seasons ago, that didn't need, this extra layer. I always go, people always tell me on Reese, I always read tweets and stuff that, so and so is the craziest or the biggest villain. And I'm thinking, these people have nothing on the past. Like, there was a season, I think the Bachelorette's name was Ashley. I don't quite remember, but she had a contestant named Bentley who was like a legit jerk. And he, like, from day one was just shit talking her in like the private interviews. And it got to the point where she was so in love with him that it was like there's probably like 12, 15 people still in the house. And she was at the point where she was like gonna pick him. Like, it was so obvious it was him. And he'd been spending all these episodes just being a complete asshole. And it came to a head where she like asked him how he felt about her. And he just is like, I don't think you're attractive. Like, I have no feelings for you. And she collapsed emotionally. This is the great stuff. And so he leaves the show, and she like is such an emotional wreck that the guys, realizing how strong her feelings were for Bentley, they basically hold a coup, and like 4 of them storm off because they're like, why am I here if she felt that strong for this guy? And that's the kind of stuff I'm thinking, like, let's get back to that. Just intrinsic fun craziness that happens because of the cast you found, but not because someone's racist, or because, I mean, maybe Bentley's racist, I don't know, but it didn't come out in that season. And we don't need to bring in 6 new guys midway through to cause drama. It's just because of how the show goes. I mean, you're always gonna have drama. You have 30 people all dating one person. There's going to be drama. You don't need to like jazz it up like the producers seem to think.
Yeah, so I knew I knew Aaron Rodgers' brother was a bachelor, and then prior to that experience, so the person I'm dating now, she's very much a Bachelor fan, very much a Bachelorette fan. So I watched a few episodes with her, kind of towards the end, and I knew there was like at least what was kind of cool. Like, oh, there's like a few people from a few women.
Yeah, we had some Oregon people for sure. Yeah,
I was like, yeah.
I think we had like a Hillsboro girl and
Was it
like
Happy
Portland,
Valley?
Happy Valley. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but
like,
then she moved to LA. They always move. They always are Oregon when they first go on the show, and then all of a sudden they're New York or LA, or they don't last long in our state.
They're like, oh, I finally made it. I'm out of Oregon. I'm on TV, so I'm going to LA. Peace.
Yeah, it's a great way to become like a C-list celebrities, to go on The Bachelor. You get invited to like all their parties, and you go on the Bachelor in Paradise or Bachelor Pad when it happened, and you get like 3 or 4 TV appearances if you are somewhat popular, and then you just are like a C-list celebrity for life. It's pretty great.
It's either be on The Bachelor or Bachelorette, or be very, very good on YouTube. Hey,
yeah,
this could happen for us.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so like I knew the controversy that surrounded that last season with the winner having a photo that she posted that she didn't know any.
Yeah, like an antebellum party.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't go into any antebellum parties in college. I don't know.
Isn't there a singer called Lady Antebellum?
Yeah. I don't know if like antebellum in general is a bad term. It's like the name of that kind of time period and culture in the South. Like the antebellum South was when slavery was happening, but also, like the dresses and stuff and the architecture and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so like I knew about all that, and it was like it was also it was pretty cool that they finally did the first Black Bachelor.
They're doing better finally. I mean, it was a true and early Bachelor where if you were a minority on the show, you wouldn't make it past like the final six.
Yeah.
It just never happened. I can't think of any. There are a few here and there, but it was almost a guarantee. You could bet money on it that any person of color would not make it past the final six. And they've been a lot better about that. And just having more cast members of color have been nice. And it's a trend they should keep going. It's silly. I've heard stuff about like they're gonna have an older bachelor, like a 60-year-old, and then like people of that age. And I think that's great too. I think, there's only so much interest when it's like a bunch of 18 to 24-year-olds every time. I'm totally down for like different stuff like that. I'd be down for like a gay bachelor would be interesting to me.
Yeah,
I don't know if they'll do it. I don't, ABC and all that, but why not try? Let's just see what happens.
Yeah, and then when she explained to me the dynamic of how it works, and I was just like, wait a minute. So, because she also had the same frustration where it's like, this guy can have sex with this one girl one night and be very much like emotionally attached, and then just flip it and then do it all over again with someone else. I was like,
yeah, I mean, you got to have. You go on that show, sort of what's happening. I'm always surprised by the people who like emotionally collapse when the bachelor like kisses them and then turns around and kisses someone else. And I guess that'd be hard, but I think to myself, what the hell did you think you're signing up for?
Yeah.
Like that's the nature of the game. And it's frankly why half the time these relationships don't work, because they watch the season together and realize that he was like hooking up with everybody. there's been breakups with like where the bachelor has told the person he ended up choosing, like you're the one. One guy, Brad Womack, came back. So the very first one I ever watched, he came back for a later season, like as a redemption shot.
Oh yeah,
and he basically like had the girl he was going to pick lined up from day one. It was just obvious. And he told her, like midway through the show, like, I'm in love with you. Like, this is it. And then she broke up with him later because he ended up sleeping with the other women in the fantasy suite. So it's like, dude, what did you think was going to happen?
You can't be expecting him to say this and then, like, stay true to it when he has to see these other women to continue on with the show.
If I would have been him and I knew, like, this is the girl I want, like, I'm in love with her. Maybe it don't do the fantasy suite stuff, bud. Like what do you think was gonna happen?
Or just say like, or save it to like the end, or like when you guys are finally done, just be like, oh, I actually loved you the whole time. I couldn't say anything because I have to continue on with the show. Or it's like,
at least then there's plausible deniability where he can be like, that's how the show goes. I wasn't sure, but he's like, you're the one, and then
that whole moment, it's like the giant emoji where like the person's like, oh well.
And of course, they broke up. What'd you think? That's how it goes.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Keizur, this to wrap up my interview, I like to ask 2 questions from this pack of 170 hypothetical questions, just to have a little fun to wrap it all up.
It's a lot of questions. You can feel free to ask all 170. Let's do it.
We'll actually get another episode. Then I can just ask you the whole thing. There we go.
Let's do it.
So with you being such a horror fan, I thought this one would be kind of fun for you because it does kind of like go into the sci-fi realm.
Okay.
So what would you do if you had your own intergalactic spaceship roughly the size of a house?
I would fly off into space and see what happens. I've always been drawn, my favorite sci-fi stuff are the group of people on a ship that's like going off, millions and millions of light years away, and it's like a generational ship. I think that's cool. And so I guess it would just be me, but I'd do that. I'd mimic that.
Yeah. The Lost in Space TV show on Netflix.
Yeah, that'd be me, except just me and the robot.
Yeah, see, exactly. And then maybe you take that University of Oregon dartboard behind you too, just for some fun.
I'll decorate the spaceship. Add a little personal touch. That spaceships are always so like sci-fi and lame. Like I'd have stuff in it, like
Yeah.
posters and music playing and stuff. Come on.
Well, a little smooth jazz.
Yeah, I think so, in space for sure. A little techno stuff. Yeah.
So for me, like I don't have like a specific favorite animal, but it's more like the bioluminescent animal, the fish, a
Okay.
bioluminescent fish. Like I just remember like reading about it in science class at Lane, and then thinking these are so cool, and then realizing they're like deep down into the water.
Yeah,
Like
you got to go down.
they're very
You got to
down.
go like James Cameron deep to get down to that level.
Yeah, I'm not ready to do that, but it's like
Mm,
the mystery of like what's in the water. It's the same thing can be applied to space too. So yeah, I'd probably
mm.
go explore and then find some aliens and you know
Oh, first contact.
see what happens.
Okay, I'm rooting for you. I hope you find those bioluminescent space fish.
Oof, I mean, I'd rather just take photos and then just be like, you know what? I like sushi, but I will not eat that one.
It
That
could
would
be good.
just it
Who
could be
knows?
good. It could be
Yeah.
good. It could taste like chicken.
Yeah, that's what they say.
So this is also a great segment to the second question.
Okay.
Where if you can
Yes,
make
I would eat space sushi.
any
Done. Asked and
interview's
answered.
done. Interview is done. If you can make any non-edible thing edible to humans, what would you choose?
Oh, I don't know. There's always those like I think it would be marbles for me.
Okay.
Um, I was trying to think. There's other stuff like that, like those kind of like decorative little ball things that are just so bright and shiny. Um, so I guess I do that. I don't know. That's something I haven't really thought about, but as a kid, I wasn't like trying to eat marbles or anything, but I don't know. Legos could be fun to eat too because you build some cool. It's like you can play with your food and then you eat it after.
Actual I guess I know what they have like Lego candies, I think.
That's right. Yeah. But they're like those shitty powdered sugar stuff. Like
Yeah.
I want my Legos to taste,
You
good.
want you want to have that like structure, buildability, and
Yeah.
then eat it.
Right.
Oh,
Exactly.
I would say, I mean, I'm looking at tables. I feel like
I know. So start looking around your
table,
apartment, like,
yeah.
what would I eat? My pen, my
Pen-
phone.
I think it's like, let's say the table is made of like crackers. That would make things so easy, like some sort of like cracker that you can also rebuild. Because like from
Okay,
moving,
right.
I want to be able to like break the cracker in half, move to a new apartment, rebuild the cracker. I don't know.
Is that a
IKEA.
thing? Is that a thing? Rebuildable crackers? That seems like I didn't know that was a.
Keizur, it's 2021. Anything's
Oh,
possible.
okay, yeah.
So, Chris Keizur, where can the people find you on social media, and where can
Oh,
they listen to your show?
social media is easy for me. It's always just Chris Keizur. The spelling of my name you'll put somewhere.
Yep,
That's all my
and
social media. Just
right below where
right.
you are, right
Yeah,
there.
It's right down there.
Lower
And
third,
then
baby.
yeah. And then it's the Boo Boys. I don't even know. I should look this up. Is the part of it? Let's see.
Uh,
I don't even remember. It shows
I,
how high tech I am. No, it's just Boo Boys.
yeah, just Boo
Strike
Boys.
the
Yep.
Boo Boys. Wherever you know what they say, wherever you listen to your podcast, wherever you can find podcasts, that's where we are.
Yeah.
All over the place.
All over the place. Got
Yeah.
some fun episodes. Actually have a defined
Well,
seasons, which
we have
I have.
we have scary episodes, spooky. You will be scared and you will have everything spoiled. So if it's a movie you ever want to watch and care about spoilers, don't listen to it.
But you'll have the soothing voice with this great mic of Chris Keizur.
That's
really,
true. Yeah,
like,
my
take on
fancy.
a journey.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sticking around until the end of the episode. If you like what you heard or watch and would like more episodes from Keoni Chats, the show can be found on all podcast platforms and YouTube under Keoni Chats. If you want to keep in the loop on other creative content releases, you can follow KC Media on Instagram and Twitter under KC Media 13. And then on Facebook, it'll be under Conlu K Media. So if you'd like to be a guest, email me at kcmedia13@yahoo.com. Tell me your story. I'd love to get you on the show. So until the next episode, everyone, please take care.